She ran for years, trusting no one. Then a lonely rancher offered her shelter and taught her to love again. Subscribe to Wild Sky Stories' new emotional tales every day. The stagecoach rattled to a stop in the small town of Willow Creek, dust swirling around its wheels like whispered secrets. The passengers filed out one by one, stretching their tired limbs after the long journey across the territory. But one passenger remained inside. Her name was Eliza May Thornton, and she had been running for 3 long years. Running from a past that haunted her dreams. Running from the memory of a cruel uncle who had stolen her inheritance and threatened her life when she tried to reclaim what was rightfully hers. Running from the fear that had become her constant companion. She clutched a worn leather bag against her chest, her knuckles white with tension. Inside that bag was everything she owned in this world. A photograph of her late parents, a small Bible with her mother's handwriting in the margins, $17.32, and a letter from a woman named Harriet Sullivan, offering her a position as a housekeeper on a ranch she had never seen. The stagecoach driver appeared at the door, his weathered face softening when he saw the young woman still sitting there, trembling slightly. "Miss, this here is Willow Creek. End of the line for you, according to your ticket." Eliza nodded slowly and forced herself to stand. Her legs felt weak beneath her simple blue traveling dress. She was 24 years old, but years of hardship had taught her to trust no one and expect nothing good from this world. She stepped down from the coach, shielding her eyes against the bright afternoon sun. The town stretched before her, a modest collection of wooden buildings lining a dusty main street, a general store, a church with a white steeple, a small schoolhouse at the far end. People moved about their business, some pausing to glance at the newcomer with curious eyes. Eliza felt exposed, vulnerable. She wanted nothing more than to climb back into that stagecoach and disappear into the endless horizon. "You looking lost, miss?" The voice came from her left, deep and gentle. She turned to find a tall man standing near a wagon loaded with supplies. He wore a simple work shirt, dusty trousers, and a brown hat that had seen better days. His face was honest and open, with kind brown eyes that seemed to hold no judgment. "I am looking for the Sullivan ranch," Eliza said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. She had learned that speaking softly drew less attention. Less attention meant less trouble. The man's expression shifted, and something like sadness crossed his features. "You must be the lady Mrs. Sullivan hired before she passed." Eliza felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Passed? About 2 weeks ago. Peaceful in her sleep. She was a good woman, Mrs. Sullivan. My nearest neighbor. The words hit Eliza like a winter wind. Her one hope, her one chance at a new beginning had vanished in an instant. She had nowhere to go, no money to travel further, no family to turn to. She must have swayed on her feet because suddenly the man was at her side, his hand hovering near her elbow without quite touching her. "Easy there, miss." "When did you last eat?" Eliza could not remember. 2 days ago, perhaps. She had been rationing her money, trying to make it last. "My name is Samuel Dawson," the man said. "I own the ranch just west of where Mrs. Sullivan lived. Her nephew inherited her place, but he already has a housekeeper and he is selling the land anyway." Eliza nodded numbly. Of course, the one door open to her had slammed shut before she could walk through it. This was how her life had always been. Samuel Dawson studied her face for a long moment. He saw the dark circles under her eyes, the pallor of her skin, the way she flinched when anyone walked too close. He saw fear, deep and abiding fear, etched into every line of her young face. "I could use some help at my place," he said slowly, as if the idea had just occurred to him. "It is just me out there since my mother passed last spring. I am not much of a cook, and the house has gotten away from me. If you are looking for work, I can offer you a fair wage, a room of your own, and 3 meals a day." Eliza looked at him with suspicion. She had learned that kindness from strangers often came with a price she was not willing to pay. "I'm not that kind of woman, Mr. Dawson." Samuel's cheeks flushed red. "I would never suggest such a thing, miss. The room has a sturdy lock on the inside. You would have complete privacy. I sleep in the barn most nights anyway, especially during calving season. I'm asking for a housekeeper, nothing more. My mother raised me to be a gentleman, and I intend to honor her memory." There was something in his voice that made Eliza want to believe him, something steady and true. But trust did not come easy to her anymore. "I will pay you in advance for the first month," Samuel added. "That way, if you decide the arrangement does not suit you, you will have money to move on." Eliza studied his face, searching for any sign of deception. She found none, only earnest hope and something that looked almost like loneliness. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" she asked. Samuel removed his hat and ran a hand through his dark hair. "Because my mother was once a stranger in a strange land, and someone showed her kindness when she needed it most. She always said that kindness given freely comes back tenfold. And honestly, miss, you look like you could use a friend." Eliza felt tears prick at her eyes. She blinked them back fiercely. She had not cried in 3 years, and she was not about to start now. "My name is Eliza Thornton," she said finally, "and I accept your offer, Mr. Dawson." The ride to the ranch took about an hour. Samuel drove the wagon while Eliza sat beside him, maintaining a careful distance. He did not press her with questions, for which she was grateful. He simply pointed out landmarks along the way, told her about the territory, and gave her time to adjust. The Dawson Ranch spread across a gentle valley, with rolling hills covered in golden grass and a creek that wound through the property like a silver ribbon. The main house was modest but well built, with a wide porch that faced the setting sun. A barn stood nearby, along with several smaller outbuildings and a fenced corral where horses grazed peacefully. "It is not fancy," Samuel said, a hint of apology in his voice. "But it is home." Eliza gazed at the scene before her, and something stirred in her chest, something she had not felt in a very long time: hope. The first weeks were difficult. Eliza jumped at every sudden sound. She kept her door locked at night and slept with a chair wedged under the handle. She spoke little and watched Samuel constantly, waiting for the mask of kindness to slip and reveal the cruelty she had come to expect from the world. But the mask never slipped. Samuel was exactly who he appeared to be. He worked hard from sunup to sundown, caring for his cattle and horses with gentle hands and a patient temperament. He said please and thank you. He complimented her cooking even when she burned the biscuits. He never raised his voice, never made demands, never looked at her with anything but respect. One evening, about a month after her arrival, Eliza found him on the porch, staring at the sunset. She hesitated in the doorway, then slowly walked out and sat in the chair beside him. "It is beautiful here," she said softly. Samuel smiled. "My father picked this spot when he and my mother came west. He said the light reminded him of the place he grew up, somewhere in Pennsylvania. They built this house together, log by log. What happened to them? Father passed when I was 16. Fever took him fast. Mother held on for almost 20 more years, but I think she was just waiting to see me settled. When she realized I was too stubborn to marry and give her grandchildren, she decided to go on ahead and wait for me on the other side." Eliza heard the grief in his voice, carefully contained but still present. "I am sorry for your loss," she said. "And I am sorry for whatever brought that fear into your eyes, Miss Thornton." Eliza's stiffened. She had never told him anything about her past. "I do not mean to pry," Samuel said quickly. "You do not owe me any explanations. I just want you to know that whatever you are running from, you are safe here. I would never let anyone hurt you. Not on my land." Something broke inside Eliza then, a wall she had built around her heart, Brick by brick, year by year, tears spilled down her cheeks, and she could not stop them. Samuel did not try to touch her or offer empty comfort. He simply sat beside her, a steady presence, until the storm passed. When she finally spoke, her voice was raw but stronger than before. "My parents died when I was 18. They left me everything, a small farm and some savings, but my uncle, my father's brother, wanted it for himself. He forged documents, bribed officials, and stole it all. When I threatened to expose him, he made it clear that he would have me silenced permanently." She took a shaky breath. "I have been running ever since. Different towns, different names, always looking over my shoulder. I was starting to believe I would never know peace again." Samuel was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice firm and steady. "Your uncle is a coward who preys on those weaker than himself. But you are not weak, Miss Thornton. You survived. You kept going when many would have given up. That takes more courage than most people have in their entire lives." Eliza looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since they had met. "Why are you so kind to me?" Samuel met her gaze without flinching. "Because you deserve kindness. Because everyone deserves a chance to start over. And because from the moment I saw you standing by that stagecoach, looking like a lost bird in a storm, something in my heart told me I was meant to help you find your way home." The seasons changed. Summer faded into autumn, and autumn gave way to winter. The ranch became blanketed in snow, and Eliza and Samuel fell into an easy rhythm. She cooked and cleaned and mended his clothes. He taught her to ride and showed her how to care for the animals. They spent long evenings by the fire, reading or talking or simply sitting in comfortable silence. The fear began to fade, not all at once, but gradually, like morning mist burning off under the warm sun. Eliza started to smile more. She laughed at Samuel's terrible jokes. She stopped locking her door at night. And somewhere along the way, without either of them quite realizing it, friendship began to deepen into something more. It was Christmas Eve when Samuel finally spoke what was in his heart. They had decorated a small tree that he had cut from the hills above the ranch. Eliza had made ornaments from scraps of fabric and ribbon, and the result was simple but beautiful. A fire crackled in the hearth, and the smell of her apple pie filled the house. "Eliza," Samuel said, and the use of her first name made her look up. "There is something I need to tell you." She set aside her sewing and gave him her full attention. Samuel stood and walked to the window, his back to her. The snow was falling gently outside, covering the world in white. "When you came here, I told myself I was just being neighborly, just helping someone in need, the way my mother would have wanted. But I have not been honest with myself, and I have not been honest with you, Eliza." His heart began to beat faster. "I love you," Samuel said, turning to face her. "I love your courage and your strength. I love the way you hum while you cook. I love how gentle you are with the horses. I love the sound of your laugh and the light in your eyes when you watch the sunset. I have tried to keep silent, tried to respect the trust you have given me, but I cannot pretend anymore." He crossed the room and knelt before her chair, taking her hand in his. "I am not asking for an answer tonight. I know you have been hurt, and I know trust does not come easy for you, but I want you to know that my intentions are honorable. I want to marry you, Eliza. I want to build a life with you. I want to give you the home and the family you deserve." Eliza looked at the man kneeling before her. This good, kind, patient man who had given her shelter when she had nowhere to go, who had protected her without asking anything in return, who had slowly, gently helped her remember how to live again. "I have been afraid for so long," she whispered, "afraid to trust, afraid to hope, afraid to love. But you have shown me that the world is not all darkness and danger. You have shown me that there are still good people, still good things, still reasons to believe in tomorrow." She reached out and touched his face, her fingers trembling. I love you too, Samuel Dawson. I think I have loved you since that first day, when you offered me kindness without expecting anything in return. I just did not know how to say it. I did not know if I was allowed to feel such things anymore. Samuel's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Is that a yes? Eliza smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing Samuel had ever seen. Yes, it is yes. 1,000 times yes. He stood and pulled her gently to her feet, wrapping his arms around her in a tender embrace. They stood there for a long time, holding each other, while the snow fell softly outside and the fire crackled warmly beside them. They were married in the spring, in the little church in Willow Creek. The whole town came to celebrate. The bride wore a simple white dress that she had sewn herself, and the groom could not stop smiling. After the ceremony, they rode back to the ranch in a wagon decorated with wildflowers. Eliza leaned against her husband's shoulder, watching the familiar landscape roll past. We should think about adding on to the house, Samuel said. Maybe a couple more rooms, for the future. Eliza smiled and placed her hand over her stomach, where new life was just beginning to grow. She had not told him yet, but she would tonight. That sounds like a wonderful idea, she said. The ranch spread before them, golden and green in the afternoon light. Home. The word filled Eliza's heart with warmth. After years of running, years of fear, years of believing she would never know peace, she had finally found where she belonged. Not just a place, but a person. Not just shelter, but love. She looked at Samuel, this quiet rancher who had seen a frightened stranger and offered her his hand, his home, and his heart. She thought about all the things that had led her to that dusty stagecoach stop, all the pain and loss and fear, and she realized that every step, no matter how difficult, had been leading her here, to this valley, to this ranch, to this man. Thank you, she whispered. Samuel looked down and at her. For what? For finding me, for saving me, for loving me. He kissed her forehead gently. You saved yourself, Eliza. I just gave you a place to land. And so they lived in that little ranch house in the valley, surrounded by hills and horses and hope. They raised children who learned to ride before they could read. They grew old together, side by side, partners in every sense of the word. And every evening they sat on that wide porch and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and rose, grateful for every moment they had been given. For Eliza, who had once lived in fear, had finally found something stronger. She had found home. She had found love. She had found peace.